Hey everyone, it's Ian from the Cognitive Cow, and today we have another chapter of Tales from the Closet. I'm in the closet and I'm telling you tales, right? Because this whole thing started because some libraries were hosting drag story hours, and Christians kept coming in with their neo-Nazis and their KKK, and they were pointing assault rifles at the kids and shutting down the events. Well, good luck doing that on YouTube, because that's why we started this series. But anyway, this is Chapter 7. Now, I won't waste any time recapping the series. You can go watch the other 6 chapters we just did. But in this chapter, where we left off, Yeshua and the 410, there are so many characters in this story that I forget them all, and I just have to keep abbreviating them as 410. Just know there's 410 of them. That's the Abraham's former servants. There were the priests from the Council of Nicaea. And there was Abraham, Isaac, Sarah, Hagar, Ishmael, Lot's daughters. They don't have names. We just named them Lucre and Reiner. And who was Lot's wife again? I don't remember, but she's back too. And there's Chukwu, that indigenous guy. I think it's time to dismiss some of these characters, and I think we will dismiss like 20 of them in this chapter. But anyway, let's begin. So. The impostor god and the scapegoat devil arrived at Mount Ararat in modern-day Turkey, where Noah's Ark landed. It's still there today. It's fossilized, but it's there. We joined the two in the middle of a conversation about the worldwide flood. So you killed everybody? Everybody, the impostor god recalled, and not just the men, but the women and the children too. The scapegoat's devil jaw dropped in awe of this statement. But why? Because they're animals, the scapegoat god explained, so I slaughtered them like animals because I hate them. I had to slip in at least one Star Wars reference at least once in this story. Anyway, but they're made in your image, the scapegoat devil objected. Exactly, the impostor god pointed out, and I don't want sinners and Democrats bearing my image. Then why did you make them the way they are? The scapegoat devil asked. Because, he remarked. He didn't remark. He remembered he isn't the real God who's good and loves us. And he continued, well, that's just it. I didn't create them. The good God did. The good God doesn't make trash. He only makes people in his image, not anyone else's image. And everyone is inherently born with the attributes of his character. However, he likes to make some attributes more pronounced in some people, hence the different personality types, and these attributes come with their own strengths and weaknesses. The weaknesses elevate people's risk of sin, but the good God uses both people's strengths and weaknesses to contribute to his greater collective purpose for all humanity. It's this utopian project he calls the Kingdom of Heaven, which he's trying to build on Earth for some reason. I don't know why. But you see, I'm not the good God, I'm the bad God. I'm Trump's God. I'm the Baptist white man God who gives people cancer and tells people to shoot up schools and nightclubs. So if I were to create the people that the good God creates, despite not loving them, it would be because I love torturing people in hell for all eternity. Wait, the scapegoat devil realized. There's torture in hell? Only in Dante's Inferno, which is unbiblical, the scapegoat God corrected. In the real biblical hell, God isn't there. So hell is what the world would look like if God wasn't there to keep everything in check, including suffering and chaos. That's why it's called the second death, because when you die in hell, that's it. That's also why people who hate God go there. They wish for a world without God, and they get what they want only to see exactly what the world would look like if there wasn't a God to keep all the suffering in check. So that is actually some dialogue that I wrote in the story, but that is also my personal theological explanation for why Trump supporters and people who are humans and have morals seem to serve completely different gods. Because Trump's God is that horrible thing that we just described, and then there's this good God that we're trying. Modern churches are preaching it. Raphael Warnock is preaching it. Gay Christians are preaching it. I don't know what Trump's doing. They're their own religion. And don't even get me started on Baptists. They believe all kinds of horrible things that God does because he feels like it and he says we're property. You know, the Baptist God doesn't love us. He's just here to use us and just dispose of us. That's not the God we were advertised as kids. But anyway, the scapegoat devil thought about it for a second and said, "That makes sense. So what the hell are we doing?" The imposter God used the Force to open the giant door of Noah's Ark and said, "We're making America great again." And all of his Republican angels boarded the Ark and got to work turning it into a battleship. Yeah, that pretty much sums up the Baptist God and the Trump God for you. America's not even in the Bible. What makes them think America's so special out of all the countries in the world that their God doesn't seem to care about, but a good God would? And I believe there is a good God and that there is also a bad God. Which one are we serving? Well, that depends, but I won't get into that in this video. Well, actually, I just did with all that stuff, but anyway. Next paragraph. Meanwhile, in Sheol, David Ben-Gurion, we met David Ben-Gurion in the previous chapter. He was the founder of the Zionist movement during the Arab-Israeli War of 1948 that kicked off today's Israel-Palestine conflict. And we're going to get into the geographical shit in a minute here, but here's David Ben-Gurion. David Ben-Gurion embraced Abraham with open arms and declared, "The year is 1973 when I died, and Israel finally has a place to call home." I don't know why that's the first thing he says when he meets Abraham, but I guess he just wants him up to date on what's going on. Abraham turned to Yeshua in shock. It took 3,750 years for my descendants to find a home? No, it only took 100 years. Your grandson inherits the land of Canaan, but there's a famine, and he has to take his family to Egypt so they don't starve. But by the time they get back to Canaan, 350 years have passed, and they have to kick a bunch of empires off their land so they can be a nation. Well, that doesn't sound so bad, Abraham supposed. But why is he saying 1973 AD? Because your descendants never get along with their neighbors, so every few centuries they fight and take each other's land. In 1948, right on the heels of World War II, Israel had a race war. What's Israel? Sarah asked. Some people call it Israel, some people call it Palestine, but your descendants are called the Israelites, Ben-Gurion explained, because your grandson is named Israel, and he will have 12 sons whose families grow into tribes, and those tribes will unite to become the nation of Israel. Abraham and Sarah turned to each other with awe and excitement. He does keep his promises, Abraham whispered in wonder. I'm sorry I laughed when you said I would get pregnant at 90 years old, Sarah confessed. Ben-Gurion continued, but 3,394 years later, there was a problem. You see, Israel has a habit of getting invaded and occupied every few decades, and after World War II, we decided we've had enough. So we built up an army with the supplies we got from the Allied powers, and we kicked them all out by force. There's just one problem, Yeshua added. The land of Canaan that your descendants inherit spreads only as far as the Mediterranean Sea. As far west as the Mediterranean Sea, as far east as the Jordan River, as far north as Acre, and as far south as Jericho. And that's all we wanted back, Ben-Gurion declared. Is it? Yeshua asked skeptically. Because over the next 75 years, your so-called Zionist movement would take power and turn Israel into a power-hungry empire, illegally occupying the lands that rightfully belong to the state of Palestine. The West Bank, the Gaza Strip, the wilderness of Zin, and the entire land of Edom. There is no state of Palestine, Ben-Gurion decreed. The true Israelites are of purely Jewish descent, not a bunch of black Muslims. You sure? One of the priests from the Council of Nicaea spoke up finally. Because I've been to Israel's synagogues before, and not one of them had a single white person in it. Another priest spoke up and asked, is their skin color the only way you determine if someone is an Israelite? You don't understand, Ben-Gurion frantically bullshitted. By 1948, all true Jews had been white for several generations because we couldn't live in Israel while it was still Palestine. Now, all of this is stuff that David Ben-Gurion actually believed and used to justify his genocide against Palestinians, which is still going. That's why we wrote this chapter, to address this very serious issue that no world leader has even touched. Yes, you could, Yeshua corrected. No, we couldn't, Ben-Gurion explained, because it was full of Muslims. And? What do you mean, and? You're God. You know what the Muslims did to us. Yeah, and I also know what they didn't do. And what they didn't do was provoke you to violence. Christians, Jews, and Muslims lived peacefully together in Palestine for generations before you Zionists fucked it all up. Bullshit, Ben-Gurion objected. Jerusalem is ours fair and square, and Muslims stole it and built a giant mosque where Solomon's temple is supposed to be. Okay, that part, the Muslims actually did do, but you can't blame the whole Palestinian race for it, because not all Palestinians are Muslim, and not all Muslims are Palestinian. They had nothing to do with it. That was 1,000 years before this modern Israel-Palestine conflict happened. So it wasn't right for Ben-Gurion to blame, and for the Jewish community as a whole to blame, this entire religion and entire race of people for something that was always prophesied was going to happen. And a lot of Jewish people are beginning to say that too. They're like, yeah, guys, this isn't right. They're not responsible for this. What are we doing? You know? That temple was always prophesied to come down, and the city along with it, Yeshua recited. Your own book says it at the very beginning of Zechariah 14. In fact, where's my Bible? I can find you what Zechariah... Never mind. Zechariah 14 is really bad. But that is what it says, just in a kind of way. You mean you wanted Jerusalem to fall? Yep. But why? Because the Israelites turned it into a racist, capitalist dictatorship and started making laws about who can and cannot visit God, despite the fact that he never lived in that temple you idolized. Judaism isn't a skin color. It's supposed to be a community encompassing people of all walks of life. And you don't need your own country to do that. Ben-Gurion lost his patience with this blasphemer and punched him in the face. That provoked Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac to tackle him, which in turn led to Ben-Gurion's guards drawing their weapons to strike them down, only to be blocked by the weapons of Abraham's former servants. And in seconds, a major battle had broken out, killing 20 of the former servants and 18... I had a stroke, of Ben-Gurion's guards. Stop! Yeshua shouted so loudly that everyone dropped their weapons and collapsed on the ground with ringing ears. Now you can sit here and rot. You're not coming with us back in time to fix this conflict. You're no god, Ben-Gurion remarked insidiously. You're just a filthy Muslim. Nah! He didn't get to finish because Yeshua ripped his jaw off and threw it on the ground. As he should. Good riddance, Ben-Gurion. Come on, guys. There were... Wait a minute. Why am I getting a call? Alright, bye. Alright, sorry about that. I was getting a phone call. I'm sorry. But anyway, back to the story. Where were we? Come on, guys. There were now 390 people left because of the battle, and they started marching back to the portal. But Ben-Gurion's surgeons rebuilt his jaw and put it back in place with hammer and nails. I don't know why, but it's Sheol, and they didn't know that medical technology had advanced since the 70s, but this is what they did to rebuild his jaw so that he can keep being in the story. He's going to be one of the villains, I think. I haven't written that far yet, but 600 men with me, he ordered, and 600 guards went with him as he stalked the 390 back to the portal to Sheol. That was a disaster, Abraham lamented. Will my children be monsters who betray and murder each other? Isaac wondered. No, son. Abraham put his hand on Isaac's shoulder as they walked through the portal. We're doing the right thing to make sure that doesn't happen. Well, that's too damn bad, the imposter god announced from the bridge of the armored ark that had just arrived on shore, because it's the will of God that it will happen anyway. 60 loaded cannons aimed at the 390 and prepared to fire on the imposter god's command. And I intentionally ended this chapter on a cliffhanger. You know why? Because these aren't getting enough views, and I want you to be on the edge of your seat waiting for the next one. Like, this is a real strategy that writers use so that you'll watch the next one because you want to see what happens next. Are they going to die? Is the ark going to shoot everybody? Like, what's going to happen? Well, I don't know because I haven't written that part yet, so it's fun for me too. Haha. That's business and stuff. But I hope you enjoyed, and that was our take on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Some geographic locations were mentioned. You should go look those up because they're important. Because all of that land rightfully belongs to Palestine before Israel stole it. By force. Illegally. I need to go get water.